Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right in to explore the absolute ultimate engine of life on our planet. We're talking about a biological marvel that operates completely silently right under our noses all the time. Yet without it, the world as we know it simply would not exist. That's right, we are demystifying photosynthesis. Okay, let's dive into this. I want you to picture the Earth roughly 2 billion years ago. It was completely, utterly devoid of life. And why is that? Well, because the atmosphere had absolutely zero free oxygen in it. It was only the sudden appearance of green plants that actually set the stage for animals and eventually us to even exist in the first place. So the crucial takeaway right off the bat is pretty absolute, just like our source material points out. Our very existence is entirely 100% dependent on the biological machinery inside leaves. I mean, think about it. Whether you're eating a fresh salad or a steak from an animal that grazed on grass, literally every single food chain always starts with a plant. They are the ultimate producers. To really wrap our heads around this, we're going to take a bit of a zoom in, zoom out journey today. We'll start with nature's ultimate power plant. Head inside the green factory. Check out the two-phase assembly line. Uncover the price of photosynthesis, and finally look at powering the global web.
Section 1. Nature's ultimate power plant.
Let's start by defining the actual mechanism that literally changed the fate of our planet. The word itself is actually a brilliant literal translation. Photo means light, and synthesis means putting together. So the plant is quite literally putting together raw materials from the air and the soil, using the sheer brute power of sunlight to create glucose and starch. It sustains itself and completely indirectly sustains all of us. All right, zooming into the microscopic level for Section 2, inside the green factory. You know, back in middle school biology, you probably heard the chloroplast called the kitchen of the cell. Honestly, you can go ahead and scratch that. Our sources clarify this is actually completely wrong. Think about it. A kitchen only cooks food, right? It doesn't magically produce the raw ingredients out of thin air. A way better, much more accurate analogy is a highly efficient starch-producing factory that brings in raw materials to manufacture something brand new. If we step right onto that microscopic factory floor inside the chloroplast, you'll see these closely packed flattened sacs called grana. They're basically arranged in little piles, and this is exactly where the solar energy gets trapped. Surrounding those piles is this colorless ground fluid known as the stroma. These two specific areas, they are the main workstations of our entire green factory. Moving on to part 3, the two-phase assembly line. Now that we are fully inside the factory, we have to look at the two very distinct shifts happening continuously on this assembly line. And here's a detail I find absolutely fascinating, the term dark phase. You've probably heard it before, but it's actually a massive misnomer. It does not mean this happens at night, not at all. It simply means these specific reactions aren't dependent on light to work. In fact, they happen simultaneously with the light reactions, with a time gap of less than 1,000th of a second. That's exactly why scientists today strongly prefer to call it the light-independent phase. So the light-dependent phase kicks off with a bang, specifically two rapid, vital steps over in the grana. First up, the chlorophyll absorbs photons, those are the smallest individual units of light, and becomes activated. Second is photolysis, photo for light, lysis for breaking. That trapped solar energy basically acts like a tiny microscopic scalpel, physically splitting water molecules right down the middle into hydrogen and oxygen right there on the factory floor. Once that's done, the assembly line moves into the stroma for the light-independent phase. It finishes the job by utilizing carbon dioxide, and then the factory ships out 3 distinct end products. You've got glucose, which the plant stores away as starch, water, which it usually just reutilizes, and oxygen. And hey, note that even though oxygen just diffuses out into the atmosphere as a quote-unquote byproduct of this process, it is hardly a waste product. Every living organism, even the plants themselves at night, desperately requires it to exist. Section 4. The price of photosynthesis. Because here's the thing. Operating this massive, continuous biological factory comes with some really significant physical risks and high cost to the plant. To manufacture this food, the plant desperately needs carbon dioxide. To get it, the leaf has to open tiny pores on its underside called stomata. Think of them almost like heavy blast doors. But opening these doors is a huge risk because water inside the leaf can easily evaporate out into the atmosphere. This water loss is called transpiration, and our sources literally refer to this as the price the plant pays for photosynthesis. Fun fact, the word stoma is actually Greek for mouth, which, as our source text humorously points out, begs a pretty funny question. Should we picture some tiny, old, toothless, bearded man guarding this mouth on the bottom of a leaf? Well, biologically speaking, no. It's actually just a microscopic opening guarded by two highly specialized bean-shaped structures called guard cells that react to incredibly specific chemical signals.
So how do these doors actually open? The crucial point in the modern biological consensus, known as the potassium ion concentration theory, is that the plant actively expends energy to make this happen. During the day, the chloroplasts produce ATP, which is the cell's energy currency. That ATP actively pumps potassium ions into those guard cells. This sudden, massive concentration of potassium makes the cells draw in water from their neighbors. They swell up, they become super turgid, and they physically bulge outward, pulling that stomata pore wide open to let the carbon dioxide rush in.
And because the plant has to throw its doors open to breathe in carbon dioxide, it loses just incredible amounts of water. Get this, despite all that crazy microscopic plumbing, the intense energy expenditure, and the careful guard cell regulation, a staggering fact from the research is that a measly 1% of the water absorbed by the plant's roots is actually used in photosynthesis. 1%. The other 99% is essentially lost to the wind through transpiration. Now, that is a seriously high operational cost.
Finally, Section 5, powering the global web.
Let's pull all the way back from those microscopic, water-swollen guard cells and zoom out to the macro level to see why this matters to you and me. Look at this continuous loop, the carbon cycle. Every single carbon atom currently building your body right now, every piece of food passing through the global food chain, every drop of fossil fuel we burn, and literally all the free oxygen we breathe, it ultimately cycles right back through this microscopic green factory we've just been exploring. It is a continuous, perfect loop of life, decay, and rebirth, entirely driven by the chlorophyll inside plants.
Understanding this entire explainer reveals a pretty profound truth, don't you think? Because we rely so heavily on the energy that plants capture from the sun and bottle up into glucose, you and I are fundamentally solar-powered beings. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought today. The very next time you take a deep, refreshing breath of air or sit down to enjoy an amazing meal, will you remember to thank a leaf?